Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. You know, when we began the Scarlatti Sonata escapade, a bunch of you chimed in and said, "Oh, do Charles Avison's Concerti grossi after Scarlatti sonatas." And I said to myself, boy, that's a great idea. In fact, I've been planning to do it for some time, to be honest with you, because they're marvelous, marvelous works, and really such a fantastic little niche in the wonderful world of Baroque music, because so much Baroque music, I mean, let's face it, it all sounds the same or similar. And so anything we can find to hang our hat on, a hook, an angle, something that makes it sound different from the usual run-of-the-mill chugga 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 lump bump 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 chugga 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 chugga, you know what I mean. Sewing machine music. Anything that can make it more distinctive is a good thing. And the Concerti grossi after Scarlatti sonatas are one of those gimmicks that work really, really well. But the problem was, first, I had to start doing Scarlatti sonatas. And second of all, I had to get permission to use samples, because there's no point in talking about them unless you can do comparisons and play some stuff and hear what Avison is doing and why it's so wonderful, because it is just wonderful what he's doing. There have only been about 4 or 5 recordings of the complete set of 12 concertos. There was Neville Marriner, and then there's the one with Roy Goodman and the Hanover Band on Hyperion, and there's maybe 1 or 2 others. But we're in luck, because the splendid independent label Divine Art, which actually works out of Vermont, I found out recently. I always thought it was an English label, but because that's sort of the focus of what it does. But it's actually based in Vermont, and they have the Avison Ensemble, the Avison Ensemble, named after the man himself. And they have the Avison Ensemble's recording of the 12 Concerti grossi after Scarlatti. Here they are. And I have permission to use them liberally. So thank you very, very much, Divine Art. And I want to say the best way to get these discs is directly from the label. They have a very good functioning website. The link to this recording is in the description of this video, and they deserve your patronage. They've got quite a catalog. I was looking, there's amazing stuff in there, some really cool things. And so we're going to be talking about a lot of other fascinating recordings that they've released, some of which I've known about for a long time, but a lot of which I haven't, because, here we go again. Because we live in the day when nobody has any money to spend on promotion, which means the artists pay to have the recordings made, and then nobody knows it. What sense does that make? I don't know. So anyway, Divine Art is one of those labels and catalogs I really suggest you check out. Just go there and look at what they have. It's really wonderful. And among other things that they have is this, and quite a few other things I'm going to be talking about, because now that I'm hooked, it's going to be a lot of fun. So a beautiful label, wonderful performances. We don't need to worry about any of the other performances. They're out of print anyway, or hard to find, or it doesn't matter, because these are the best ones, with the Avison Ensemble doing Avison, the hometown team, because Charles Avison spent most of his career in and around Newcastle. And Newcastle, he went down to London to hang out with Gimignani and Handel and those people for a little while, but spent most of his life in Newcastle, which is in the English provinces. And the English provinces were an interesting sort of backwater in the late 18th century, because the tradition of playing works like Concerti grossi survived there. Not so much because they were musically unsophisticated, but because they were wonderful ways for amateur instrumental societies to get together and perform. You could have hotsy-totsy visiting soloists play the concertino, the solo parts, which are more virtuosic, and local talent could play the concerto grosso part, that is the main string ensemble. And this created a culture of performance in a day when when performance was moving from solely professional people to amateurs, to orchestral societies, to bourgeois and middle-class patronage. And the concerto grosso was, in fact, a wonderful medium in which to exploit that trend, at least in the English provinces. And so that was Avison's audience. But just because that was his audience, that doesn't mean the music was inferior. Quite the opposite. His music is pretty marvelous. I mean, I've heard most of what's out now, and it's really, really good stuff. It's lively and congenial and enjoyable and very well written, and he clearly worked hard at it. And there are quite a few sets of concertos and accompanied sonatas and other things, and we will discuss them. I've got to scratch my elbow here. Sorry, folks. There we go. We're going to talk about them because it's just good, solid, late Baroque stuff. Anyway, now we're talking about the Concerti after Scarlatti. So what did Avison do? Well, Scarlatti was all the rage in the UK from about the early, say the 1740s, more or less, for the next 20, 30 years or so. He really was, and his stuff was considered the acme of virtuosity and also quirkiness, which of course is always an English specialty. And I think that for Avison, it was of course a way to hitch his name to a substantially more famous one. But even beyond that, he didn't just take Scarlatti and transcribe it. Of course not. He fixed it. He repaired it. He allowed what he termed its hidden beauties to emerge. By our standard, we would say he submerged its natural beauties and trying to clean it up for his audience, because a lot of the things that make Scarlatti, the weird repetition and dissonant harmonies and interesting modulations and things like that, and ostinati that are relentless and all that kind of stuff. Well, he got rid of a lot of those things in making these arrangements. And more to the point, these sonatas are all in 4 movements. They're church sonatas. Slow, fast, slow, fast. That's sonata da chiesa in Italian, the church sonata form, beginning with a slow movement and containing no obvious dance music. But most of Scarlatti, you may note, is not slow. So what did Avison do? Well, he took some quick pieces, slowed them down. He used as many slow ones as he could get his hands on. And in those days, Scarlatti only consisted of the 30 published exercises, plus whatever else you could get your hands on in manuscript or that had been published from other than authorized sources. So there are, for example, if you look at the Scarlatti sonatas and you're in the upper 80s, there are a bunch of Scarlatti sonatas that are actual solo sonatas. They're for keyboard and melody instrument, probably a violin. And those are multi-movement pieces, and they have slow movements. So, of course, Avison snatched those in addition to the ones he slowed down by other means. He also used such slow ones as there were, and there were only like 2 or 3 slow Scarlatti sonatas in the first, 50 or 60 of them, which is all that he found. And then he changed their keys and nipped and tucked and did all kinds of things that are quite marvelous. And failing that, he just wrote his own movement. He wrote his own music. Some of his original music, I have to say, we're going to hear some, is really, really good. I mean, very enjoyable. And I'll let you know in a second. We'll hear it in a second. So this is, like I said, the Avison Ensemble on Divine Art. And the nice thing about this is that most collections of these pieces will tell you, as this does in the booklet here, I'm showing you half the booklet, it tells you which Scarlatti sonata was the source, and whether it was transposed or not, or whether it was shortened and cut or not, so that you know where to go if you want to do the comparisons yourself. And I urge you to do it because it's really, really cool. And I was thinking, how are we going to do this? I didn't want to take little sniglets of things here and there. I wanted you to hear something in a little bit more of a holistic way. So I took an entire concerto, that is the concerto number 5 in D minor, and we're going to go through all 4 movements and hear the Scarlatti original and then Avison's version of it, one at a time. And, you're going to love it. I guarantee it. It's 100% assured. This is one of those things I love to do because the focus is so squarely on the music and not on like bullshit, which it so often is when the subject of music comes out. This is just pure listening pleasure, every minute of it. And so let's get started without ado. Now, the first movement of Concerto Number 5 is a largo, and it's original. It's by Avison, and it's extremely beautiful. Let's listen to a little bit of it, just so you get a sense. I think it's just marvelous music. I mean, you want to hear more Avison? It's so good. Here it is. Lovely and characterful. That's the point. I mean, you really get a sense that there's somebody with a big personality behind this music. And Scarlatti, of course, had an enormous personality. And that's what you want. If somebody is going to make arrangements of Scarlatti for a different medium, he's got to have as big a personality, or at least as much hubris, as Scarlatti did. And Avison has that, as you're about to hear. Now, the second movement is an allegro, and it's based on Sonata number 11. These are Kirkpatrick numbers, K numbers. It's based on the Sonata K11. And all these sonatas are in D minor, in case you care. So let's first listen to a little bit of K11 on Brilliant Classics. We're going to have like dueling booklets here. This is the wonderful Brilliant Classics cycle featuring Peter Jan Belder. And here he is doing a little bit. I'm playing first halves without repeats and stuff because you don't need to go crazy and listen to it over and over again. But here is a bit of Sonata 11. And here is what Avison makes of it. Clearly recognizable, but a little bit, I would say, with its edge smoothed over somewhat. Partly it's a function of having a string ensemble rather than the plucky and more percussive sound of the harpsichord alone. But partly he's like I said, nipping and tucking. He's cutting a repeat here, changing a harmony there. It still sounds quite characterful. I mean, there's no doubt who we're dealing with here. The Scarlatti bit still comes through, but some of the most cogent and sort of pungent Scarlattisms, or Scarlattiisms, or scarlatosity, or scarlatolaciousness has been removed. And instead, we have Avisonacity. And so whether you like one more than the other, who cares? Anyway, it's cool. It's really cool. Now the next movement is in Andante Moderato, and believe it or not, there is a Scarlatti sonata that's an Andante Moderato. It's K41. Kirkpatrick 41. Now, K41 is a fugue. Scarlatti didn't write a lot of fugues. He didn't write a lot of contrapuntal music generally. So to have a fugue was a really good thing. And Avison was not going to let the opportunity pass by to do his take on Scarlatti's fugue. So here's a bit of the opening as it sounds on the keyboard. Let me get the right booklet here. There it is. And here is the same fugue in Avison's version for strings. Very effective both ways, in my opinion. I really think it's fine. It's great. And if the relentlessness of the harpsichord makes you crazy, you can either listen to it on a piano or give Avison a shot. Now the finale here, wait a minute, let me get the book. This is like getting complicated. That's why I'm only doing one concerto. I don't think mentally I'm up to do more than that. Okay, it's another allegro, and it's based on Kirkpatrick number, it says 5? 3 or 5? 5. Yes. Let me see if I make sure I have that one. Yes. Kirkpatrick Sonata number 5. And so here is Scarlatti's original of Sonata number 5. Yes, and here is the Avison version of Sonata number 5. Charming, delightful, fun to listen to. And of course, the better you know your Scarlatti, the more fun you're going to have listening to Avison. But if you don't know your Scarlatti, you've just got some really, really delightful Baroque music that might be unfamiliar to you that you're really going to enjoy listening to. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which of these you experience first. Or if you bother to make the comparisons I just made, or if you care, you may like instrumental music and hate the harpsichord or the solo piano or whatever Scarlatti gets played on. In that case, just listen to this. But if you want to make the comparison, it really is just tremendous fun, endlessly interesting. And once again, I have to thank the good folks at Divine Art for allowing us, and you should thank them too, with your wallet, for allowing us to use their material. We're going to be using, like I said, quite a bit more because it's very, very good. And it's just a true discovery, a treasure trove of delightful music that's just waiting for you to make its acquaintance. So keep on listening, folks. Start acquainting. Thank you. Take care.